Hello and welcome to the 2024 Randox Grand National Preview, brought to you by Genting Casino, the online premium casino of choice. Now, joining me to discuss the big race, some of the narratives that make this race particularly special, and hopefully going to pick a few winners as well. We have none other than former champion jockey Richard Johnson, alongside top presenter, pundit Rishi Persad. Good evening, gentlemen.
Evening.
Hi, Ali.
There's something very special about Liverpool a couple of days out from the National, isn't there?
Well, it's a huge buzz. I have to say that being at the racecourse earlier today was just the perfect precursor, because there's just a frisson of excitement, and then you meet some of the people that are going to be taking part in the National. Obviously, Richard's been lucky enough to be one of those in the past, but then you meet some of them and you feel we're 2 days out from it, but they're so nervous, they're so tense. I spoke to Peter Scudamore today, obviously involved with Corach Rambler. He was already crying when I spoke to him. Before I even asked him a question, he was welling up.
Richard, we might as well get it out in the open, your record in the National, before we, a little bit later. Come on then, how many rides?
I've got a very good record, 21 rides.
You've got a record.
A record. Yeah, unfortunately I never rode the winner, but I rode 2 seconds. But yeah, I have more rides than anybody else that didn't win the Grand National. So not a great record.
Not a record you want, but anyway, a record nevertheless. But when you're in the weighing room, the build up to the race, is it one race that now you're retired that you really wish that you could be back doing it, or that you miss that buzz?
Yeah, I think it was a race as you're growing up. If you wanted to be a jockey, this is the race you wanted to ride in. And again, it's a one race a year, and it's the most famous horse race in the world. So I mean, everybody wants to be involved. Yeah, if I could, there's about 3 horses I definitely, if I could get a leg up on Saturday afternoon, I definitely would want to ride again. So you feel like, I do feel a little bit miffed that I never managed to get in front.
We'll be discussing the horses that you want to ride in just a moment. Let's first just take you through then the runners and riders in this 2024 Randox Grand National, down to the 34 runners this year. We'll discuss that a little bit later. And leading the field then in terms of the betting, Corach Rambler, the defending champion, is around about the 13-2 favourite. Iron Maximus for Paul Townend, and Willie Mullins is around 8-1. Meetings of the Waters, another one in the JP McManus colours for Danny Mullins, is 9-1, along with last year's second finisher, Vanilla, for Sean Flanagan. Mr. Incredible, 12-1. Panda Boy, 12-1. Kitty's Light, 14. Marla Mission, 16s. Limerick Lace, who won at the Cheltenham Festival, one of 7 Cheltenham Festival winners in the race. She is around about 18-1. Nassalam, the Welsh national winner, is at 20-1. Manila Indo, the Cheltenham Gold Cup winner for Rachel Blackmore, is at 22-1. And Noble Yates, the winner 2 years ago, is at 22-1 as well. And we've got some big prices, which I'm sure we'll be talking about in a little bit more detail. Right then, Richard, you set us off then. The 3 horses or so that you thought you would like to be having a spin in this year's race.
Obviously, Corach Rambler, he won the race last year. He's the obvious choice. I slightly worry he is higher in the handicap this year. It's going to be harder for him. He's carrying, we said earlier, £13 more. Obviously, he ran really well in the Gold Cup. And I just worry that Peter Scudamore, I remember him telling me a couple of years ago that he loved this horse, but he's definitely a horse that wants better ground, or enjoys better ground.
Well, this is it, because the going is heavy, soft in places. You're at the racecourse today. It's going to be hard work for them.
It appeared to be hard work today. I believe that the little bit of rain that we had just helps the horses maybe on Friday, but then it is due to dry out between Friday and Saturday. So the likelihood is, and Richard would know this better than anybody else sitting on here, is that when you've had heavy ground and then it starts to dry out, it becomes even harder work for them to get their poor little hooves out of that sort of ground. So it's obviously a massive test anyway of stamina, but it's that extra clawing ability of the ground to hold those horses down. And I mean, the only thing I'd say, Peter Scudamore walked the course today. He is confident that the ground won't be the reason that Corach Rambler gets beat.
When you've got a horse in it, you'll convince yourself that anything.
Do you think it's that straightforward?
Well, you definitely, you're obviously looking he wants to be on the positive side rather than the negative side, but I just feel with the more weight, because he's favourite, I just think it's adding to the
the pressure. Do you think he should be favourite?
I think he should be favourite. He's run in the Gold Cup, everything. He's in great form. today they had a horse in your ran really well. Their horses are in good form, so there's nothing negative. I just feel the ground is that worry for me. And again, if I could ride one, he's probably the top of the list. You want he ticks all the boxes, but it's going to be harder than it was last year. And for me, the horse of Gavin Cromwell's, it was second last year to him. Vanilla, he's only £3 higher. He's £10 better off with Corach Rambler this year. He's been definitely trained for this race since last year. He hasn't run since February. I just feel that, that's not knocking Corach Rambler, but this horse might have had a better preparation. So I think he's, at the prices, I think he's a better bet, and it would be a toss-up for me which one you'd probably want to ride over the two, given the choice. Yeah,
I'm surprised Corach Rambler's favourite, but Rishi, you're not, because you're a big fan. I feel like with the extra weight, different conditions this year, I feel like he's got more against him this year. Whereas last year he was favourite, and I really thought he was going to win the race, and he was the obvious one. But convince us.
Well, there are a couple of things about the ground. First of all, I know that it's very different ground this year, but actually he's won on heavy, and also bear in mind that he was behind the two best staying chasers in the Gold Cup in pretty testing ground. He was behind Galopin Des Champs, who's certainly one of the best staying chasers we've seen since the likes of Courto Star and Denman, and Jerry Colombe, who was second. Jerry Colombe won today at Aintree. So the form is strong, and that was in very testing ground.
But doesn't that mean, though, then he's had a hard race as well?
I can't see how he could have that hard a race with the extra gap that we've had this year between Cheltenham and Aintree, plus the fact he's had two soft runs as well this year. That was his first proper race of the season. The two runs earlier in the season don't count.
No.
And similar to Vanilla, no, not quite in the same execution of how they've planned for the goal from the Grand National last year to the Grand National this year. It's a similar plan to get him to the Grand National. And although he's run a really good race in the Gold Cup, an absolute belter, the Grand National's always been the number one priority for him. So I think, given the fact he is proven in pretty deep ground, like I said, he won early in his career over hurdles. He might be better on faster ground, but he's certainly not. I don't think the ground, you look through his record, will be the reason that gets him beat. Maybe more weight might be the issue, but if you look at the race again last year, he only beat Vanilla that easily because the gap at the end of the race was only that close because he just decided to drift off halfway up the run-in. He was miles better than last year. You could have called him the winner and mile out in the Grand National last year. All the horses that ran in the race last year, he was streets ahead of them. So I expect him, even though he's gone up in the handicap, I expect him, he is the one to beat.
Okay, so he's your winner, Vanilliers your winner. I worry about with the extra weight, and in previous years, when the ground has been better, you could look towards those horses at the top of the weights, whereas actually this could be one of the more testing Grand Nationals, and I resort back to how I perhaps was sort of 7 or 8 years ago, before they made the changes to the course and before we've had quite good years of good ground, that actually you would almost rule the top lot out because of the weights. And he is carrying, 13 pounds more. So I would be nervous about that. So you're, Corach Rambler
no
fan.
Nerves.
No nerves. Vanillier, and I Am Maximus for me, which we should discuss. He's the Irish national winner. Willie Mullins on absolutely fantastic form. You were saying if he wins the national, and he's got a lot of darts to throw, he could be champion jockey in the UK as well. So what, after a remarkable season, you like him as well?
He could be champion jockey as well as
champion trainer, rather.
He probably could do that.
He could do it all.
He could.
Willie could do most things.
I was looking at you. Yeah.
But no, I think it's. Look, I Am Maximus obviously ticks a lot of boxes too. But I think it's an open race. But like you've just said, I think there is horses that down slightly further down the handicap that are still very good horses, like Limerick Lace. Again,
like
she's very, very good. She's got 10.7. She's got a lightweight. I think that the stamina probably is the unproven thing, which no one's going to know until Saturday afternoon. But there's a lot of the Grand National in years gone by used to be half a dozen very good horses and a lot that made up the numbers, where now it is open competitive race all the way down the whole 34,
which is great if you want to have a bet, because you can get some really good each way prices. So come on then, some of the bigger priced horses that you've got your eye on. We still haven't had the 3 that you want to ride.
Sorry,
so Corach Rambler you would like to ride.
Well, Limerick Lace was the horse. I think she's the one that she could still be very, very well handicapped.
She comes here off the back of victory at the festival, winning the mares'
and
chase.
she won. For me, she won well. And actually, like Richie said, the Cheltenham form has been quite franked today, and it's quite nice to see those horses run well again.
And how much do we read into the fact that Mark Walsh has decided to ride her of all the JP McManus horses?
Well, he would basically, he's got the pick of which one he wants to ride, so that's got to be a plus for her. I think he's probably thinking that she is the one open to more improvement. But between the waters, I was worried. I didn't think he jumped that well at Cheltenham. I thought if he was going to win, he should have won at Cheltenham. And he didn't do it there, that was a slight, not a negative for me. But and I am Maximus. I just wonder whether he thinks he's got a lot. It's a big weight to carry in these conditions. So I think for me, Limerick Lace is the slightly bigger price, a much bigger price. Horse that Peter Bowen's called Mac Totty. I could see that running really well. His horses always come to. Over the years, he's always had horses run really well at this meeting.
It's won twice over the fences.
It's won twice over the fences. Again, I could see it running. I think it's a 40-1 shot. He could run very, very well at a big price.
That would be a lovely story for the Bowens. And for you, Rishi?
I'll give you a couple. Actually, two horses who ran in the race last year, but who both didn't complete for whatever reason. One of them is Capodanno, who Willie Mullins and obviously JP McManus, but has been cast asunder by Mark Walsh, so Keith Donoghue rides. But I think Capodanno has been better this season than he was last year. But actually, if you look at the race last year, he jumped and travelled beautifully till 2 out, and then he was pulled up between the second to last and the last. But up until that point, he travelled so comfortably, and he jumped the fences really nicely. So I enjoyed that. And I think he's a better horse this season. His win at Cheltenham in January suggested that he might actually just be a better horse. And apart from that run in the National when he pulled up last year, he's got quite a good record in April. He's got a fair few wins to his name in April, Capodanno. So he clearly comes to life in springtime. So he's around 40-1. I'll give Capodanno a chance. And the other one, who was bowling along at the head of affairs last year, Harry Cobden rode him last year, Cocoa Beach for Gordon Elliott. Again, another horse who I think is better this year than he has been last year. He has gone up in the weights and he's going to have it a lot tougher. But he goes well in deep ground. He won on heavy ground last time out, and he ran well in the Beecher at Christmas time when he was second to Chambard. So the fences, he jumped beautifully last year to the end. He ran out of steam, and I don't think he was quite at his best. But I think those two horses have proven that they can jump the fences fluently in a nice rhythm. But I also think they're much better horses this season than they were 12 months ago, and their prices reflect perhaps what they did pulling up in the race last year. I think they're both around 40-1, so I thought both horses would be reasonable each way.
So as long as they make it a 3-mile-6 race, they've got chances.
Yeah, wow. Basically.
No, that's last year.
That was last year.
Be better.
But on that sort of same theme, I like Delta Work, who was a horse that was 10-1, I think, when he finished second or third to Noble Yates 2 years ago. He was 11-1 last year, and he was unseated, going well, and he comes into this race fresh this year, having not done the cross-country race at the Cheltenham Festival. So at a big price, Delta Work is a horse like you that has appeared in the race a couple of times and gone close or ran well and could be a big price. So those are our sort of each ways, which are reasonable odds, some of them, but there's always good stories around the race as well, and some sort of long shots, and I think perhaps we should pick up on some of them, like Ain't That a Shame for David Maxwell, because Ain't That a Shame was really fancied when he was in the race last year with Rachel Blackmore, sold to 45-year-old jockey David Maxwell. Corinthian
He's nearly as old as me.
Corinthian Spirit is still strong in this race, and he's 50-1 this year when he was 10-1 last year.
Yeah, he actually went searching for Brian Aitchison today from Robcore because he bought Ain't That a Shame, I think about 6 weeks ago, never met the owner of Ain't That a Shame, found him today to say thank you for making a boy's dream come true.
It's great.
Because he has always wanted to ride in the National. He's got on this horse now. He's going to ride Ain't That a Shame in the National. But I think the main issue with the horse is that, no disrespect to David Maxwell, but he's a tough ride.
Yeah.
He's hard work. He's hard to settle. He's quite strong. And 4.25 miles around Aintree, where you're hard work and quite strong, is a test for the best of riders. Rachel Blackmore would find it tough. I think it'd be just a little bit you know, with the analyst's head on.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a side of me like it'd be brilliant for
Yeah, it
racing
would.
if he were to do well. But the challenge of what he's about to do on Aimed at a Shame is massive for an amateur.
So something then at a massive price that, well, we've already talked about Mac Totty that could just sneak in, which would be a good story.
I mentioned one horse that beat Cocoa Beach. I mean, Chambard's been a lovely old horse. It's about 66 to 1. Venetia Williams, of course, she won the race with Mon Mome at 100 to 1. So big odds, not a problem. Lucy Turner's going to be riding Chambard. She knows the horse brilliantly well. She rides him all the time. Obviously won the Beecher at Christmas time, beating one of my selections, Cocoa Beach. So I had to include Chambard at a ridiculous long shot price.
Brilliant. Well, hopefully we've picked some winners there, or at least some each way selections anyway at best. Good luck if you're having a bet on Saturday. In just a moment then we're going to be discussing some of the more broader topics around the race. But good luck and enjoy the 2024 running of the Randox Grand National. Well, welcome back then, and now time to dissect the Grand National a bit more broadly, I suppose, just where the race might be heading, how we think this year's sort of the bigger current affairs in racing generally, or particularly around the Grand National. We're down to 34 runners in this year's race. Richard, obviously, when you did your 21 rounds of the Grand National, there were the 40. Was it a right move? Is this going to make any difference?
I think it's important to review the race every year and try and tweak things if we can. We're all, they're always looking to try and for jockeys and horses' safety, look at the race and see if there's anything that can be done. And I think it's good that there's a review panel that do look at the horses that are going to run and have a few thoughts on what they can change. I think bringing the start closer to the first fence is definitely a big bonus. And obviously when you're riding, if you're one of the lucky 34, you'll be delighted there's 6 less, because that's 6 less you've got to beat. I don't think it'll take away from the race, because again, 34 runners, it's the biggest still the biggest field you'll have anywhere. And again, if it gives everybody a little bit more room, every horse probably will benefit every other horse. So yeah, it's a step in the right direction. But you still need a lot of luck as a jockey and a horse that you get a clear passage. As we were mentioning earlier, it's a cavalry charge down to the first, so you do need a bit of luck on your side as well.
They've stopped the parade before the race. They brought the race earlier, so it's now 4 p.m. rather than 5:30. I think it's been in recent years. They've, as you said, moved the start a bit closer to the first fence. All these changes, Rishi, which is important to, as Richard says, to review the race. But which ones do you think might be significant or heading into the big race?
Well, obviously there's also a standing start, which is they're going to do over all the races over the national fences from now into the future. The other one that Richard sort of alluded to is the review panel, which I think is terrific, because the review panel obviously highlight horses with jumping issues, but then if they have an issue, they can ask the trainer to provide more information on those particular horses. So they have a better understanding of the picture behind a horse's progress and training. In addition, horses have to be trotted up, they have to be examined before they're allowed to race. So it's basically taking every step possible to make sure that the horses and riders' welfare is at the top of the priority list, which is one of the most important things, because we know that the interest that this race has attracted historically. So it's important that all bases are covered as best as they can be. I don't think we'll ever say that's the end of it. It's a constantly evolving thing, and it may be that in years to come, the changes to the Grand National will see some more alterations in time to come. But there is also the flip side to that, and you look at something like Beechers, which when I was growing up as a tiny kid, or when Richard was riding the race silly in the early part of your career, I mean, I can imagine from the first time you read of the Beechers to the last time you read of the Beechers and watching it now, it has changed dramatically. And also, the nature of the race is changing because of the alterations to the course. So there is a part of me that thinks, yes, what they're doing is right because it's important for the welfare, but there's also a side of me that's a traditionalist that remembers the old days, remembers some of the better old days, not obviously the really horrible, tough, grueling attritional races, but the ones that we remember because they were so magnificent, whether it's Red Rum or Aldeniti or all the great nationals of years gone by. And it will change again. it will change again.
But when you're saying they're going to review the race and it will change, it's not going to ever change back to 40 runners. It will never.
No.
They'll never make the fences bigger. So slowly, do you feel in any way, Richard, they're chipping away at what was the Grand National and everything that made it such a spectacle?
I think we obviously have to be careful not to make it too easy for the horses to attract the wrong type of horses as well. You know, you want to attract those really, you know, fantastic big chasers that are great jumpers, and it is a stamina test and all those good things about the Grand National. But obviously, you know, when the Grand National started, one of the historians was telling me when it first started, they jumped 2 fences. They jumped one big ditch and one big hedge, and they started from like one village and literally went to the other. So wow. Obviously, over the years from when it started, it's evolved along the way. I think the most important thing is to keep the heritage of the race, but obviously make it a fantastic race. And we are attracting now Gold Cup horses to run in the race, which in itself I think shows the quality of the race, and the fact that, again, it went through a period of time, I think, where people didn't really want to risk a very good horse in the race. They were very worried about, you know, running certain horses, where now, you know, the fences have changed. When I was riding it, they changed the way the fences are made, and I think that's been a positive step for horses and jockeys, and the fact that you have top class horses running in it, for the most famous horse race in the world.
How does it change the landscape of the makeup of the fields? We've talked, extensively before Cheltenham about the domination of the Irish, but over 75% of the runners in Saturday's race are trained in Ireland, and huge numbers coming from Willie Mullins and Gordon Elliott's yard. Is that a concern at all?
I think we had Cheltenham just a month ago, and at the moment the Irish are very, very dominant, and you know the majority of top quality horses are probably trained in Ireland at the moment rather than Britain. But actually, you know, 15 years ago it was the other way around. So hopefully, I'm sure as time has changed, things evolve, they go backwards and forwards. I mean, that's at the moment that's the case, but I have no doubt that, you know, there's lots more good horses over here that will come. You're
going to tell me, because you've got the race card there, but the horses who are 35 to 40, are they Irish, British trained, or are we missing out on some of the smaller trainers who just can't quite get in because of the domination of some of the Irish yards?
You're heading in the right direction by looking at that angle of where it is. I mean, the horses down at the bottom of the weights are rated 146. Kitty's Light, etc. Kitty's Light obviously trained by Christian Williams in Wales, but those horses, so you need a horse rated mid 140s or higher. And we know over the last 5-10 years that especially in these sort of or staying chasers, horses rated 140 or higher, the numbers in the UK are dwindling, the numbers in Ireland are holding. So as a consequence, when you come to a race like the Grand National where the prize money is worth so much, and this is the category of race that you want with those numbers, obviously it's going to be that. So it's not a question of anything other than what's been going on over the last 5-10 years, which is Ireland have dominated the better classed horses. They're better, the numbers of that type of horse, there's far more in Ireland, but you know they're prolific when it comes to the better quality horses. So it was inevitable this is going to be the case. In order to rectify it and change it going further down the line, it requires a lot more than changes to the race. It requires a lot more than the type of horse required for it. That won't change. What you need is a sea change of who gets the better horses, how they scouted for, whether they bought, whether it's in sales ring. You know, people talk about Willie Mullins' horses being bought before they make the sales ring. He's got an incredible network of people that find these horses before they even make it to the sales ring, and that's why Willie Mullins has such a large hand. Gordon Elliott similarly.
But also, I would say that a lot of the horses in the race, a lot of them are bought privately, but also a lot of them do go through the sales ring. At the moment, when I started riding, the money wasn't in Ireland to actually almost keep hold of these horses. Where now, there's a lot of big owners in Ireland. A lot of the wealthy Irish owners. Racing is a big part of their culture, and they're able to hold on to a lot of those horses. Where at the moment, British trainers financially are probably just struggling slightly behind the likes of Gordon Elliott, Willie Mullins, Henry de Bromhead to buy those horses. And it is if you go to the sales ring, they just have that buying power at the moment, which again hopefully will slightly change in time, but at the moment they have a stronger hand.
The favourite is British, Corrick Rambler, and he was obviously the favourite last year when winning. Do you feel that there are obviously more favourites or shorter priced horses winning the Grand National? It's not become easier to win, but is it now with the changes to the course and the better quality horse, it's more obvious who the number of horses who can win it is smaller?
Well, you could say that, but actually I think now the 34 horses, you can make a strong case, like we've just made. We've talked about certain horses there at 40 to 1, 50 to 1 that have either been placed in a Beecher Chase or have run well in these big races. So actually, Noble Yates, was he 40 to 1 or 50 to 1 when he won 2 years ago? Yeah. So I still think there's a very good chance you'll get a big price winner, but there is that quality is
it's hard to look
there.
Beyond. Yeah. Finally, and before we leave, your favourite Grand National memory, because it is a race that it gets so many people into racing. Yes. Go on, which one?
So thanks for that. I'm not sure I've got
Rishi?
a favourite one.
To be honest, I've got loads.
Yeah, you do though. It's that kind of course.
Because it's such a great race.
It is.
And I grew up as a kid watching the Grand National. I was born in the Caribbean, and one of the 4 or 5 races that we used to get live in the early 80s, the Grand National was one of them. Then we had loads on the flat, but the Grand National was the only jumps race that we got live. And I saw Aldeniti win in 81, and then obviously the film made about the great Bob Champion, Josh Gifford, and the incredible story of Aldeniti. So that holds a very high place for me. I think one of the first horses I ever backed to win the National was Lord Gilleen.
Yeah, I backed it as well.
That's not so good a story for me.
Sorry, Richard.
You second.
No, I was riding him, and then the owner and the trainer felt that I was 18 at the time, I think. So I didn't think I had enough experience, and I'd never ridden around the Grand National. So Tony Dobbin picked up the ride. That was quite a hard one to watch.
You just bring that one back up, yeah.
But it's one of our favourites.
Yeah,
it's mine, because we backed it. And that was the Grand National was run on the Monday because of the bomb scare.
Yeah. It's those moments you back a winner when you're growing up. I think I had party politics in the family sweepstake when I was about this high, and that got me into it.
The giant party politics trained by Nick Case. He was enormous, that horse.
Huge.
And I think he won the year that or very close to the election.
It was, yeah.
And then there was the boat race as well at the same time. So if I remember correctly, though, I think looking on television on the BBC back in those days, they did a special treble of the Tory party, party politics, and might be in Cambridge to do the treble. And I actually backed it.
Any excuse.
Just trying to remember if I was actually allowed to back it. I was definitely.
Yeah, you were just of age.
Yeah.
I'm sure you were.
All right, steady.
Okay.
And then one other, when AP won on Don't Push It.
Yeah.
That was a special moment.
And like Rachel Blackmore winning on Manila Times. I mean, it was behind closed doors, so it didn't have that spine-tingling moment of being there and being able to sit, but in terms of the history of the race, a huge moment. We can nail you down for one, or are we?
Well, probably a slightly not a funny story, but the year I got beat on What's Up Boys, it was like 2001 or 2. Anyway, just got caught by Bindari. Literally felt like it was like the end of the world for me. Just thought I was going to win the race. Got beat. Had a shower afterwards, walked out, crawled out to my car, felt a little bit hard done by, and met Raymond Mould, who owned Bindari, in the car park with Nigel Tristan-Davies. They're all having drinks at the back of the car, still celebrating, and they said, "Oh, you're coming back because we all live in the Cotswolds." They said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, have you got room in your boot?" I said, "Oh, yes, I have do." So he said, "Do you want to take the trophy back for us?" So I took the trophy back to the Hollow Bottom.
Rubbed salt in the wounds.
After they won the Grand National, so we decided to just enjoy the moment and
should have kept it.
Well,
kidnapped the trophy,
hidden it, but so that was, there was But I think the great thing about the Grand National is there is always a really great story behind it as well. There's it's the dream for everyone to be involved with it, and then to win it is. It is literally a dream for most people to be involved. So to win it is the best feeling in the world.
Well, to ride in it and be part of it
I've
so many times.
been part of that a lot.
Yeah, well, look, it is a truly special race. Thank you very much then to Rishi and Richard for being part of the panel. And I'm going to leave you with a special documentary on Pinot de Rey, because it has been 10 years since he won the Grand National, and we spoke to his jockey, Leighton Aspel, to find out his memories of the day. And we also reunited the Aintree hero with his trainer, Dr. Richard Newland.
It is Pinot de Rey for Dr. Richard Newland. For Leighton Aspel will be a winning ride as Pinot de Rey wins the National.
And you'll see pride of place on the wall here. Is this lovely picture of Pinot de Rey winning the National.
You've watched the Grand National since you were a child. You've seen all the Grand Nationals and Grand National winners.
Came here, there were 400 people waiting for us. And we had a free bar here till 1:30 in the morning. It's absolutely magical. Well, here he is, our old friend, Pinot de Rey. Pinot. Look at this champion, 21 years old. My God. He looks fantastic. Pinot, welcome back to the yard. He was entered in the Goffs catalogue at Doncaster, May Sales. I always would scan that catalogue very closely, looking for opportunities, horses that I thought would be interesting. And we certainly had our eye on trying to get a Grand National horse. And actually, after we got him, my friend John Proven, we went to the races, and I said, John, I bet you I can sell you a horse in under 60 seconds. And I gave him the spiel about it, and he went, done. We shook hands on him and bought him. So very lucky to get hands on a horse like that. Not everyone would buy a 10-year-old, and I did specifically buy him for long distance races. But obviously the dream was the National. Couldn't really dream of winning the National at that stage, but he was brought to be in the National, and the whole campaign was about trying to he had to get one more good win under his belt to get up to the high enough handicap mark where we thought we'd get in the handicap and get a run. It wasn't working at first. We had the first few runs. Disappointing was a bit strong, but he wasn't knocking the door down. He wasn't looking like he was going to win a race. It was only really when we gave him a little bit of a holiday, freshened him up, brought him back, that he absolutely bolted up at Exeter, went up 10 pounds, and then we knew he'd done what we wanted to do, which is to win the race to get into the Grand National. We weren't particularly interested in running any other staying races, at least not at that stage. First entry, first runner in it. It's a fairy tale, really, isn't it?
Everybody knows the Grand National. When you were young, you wanted to ride in it. And then as you were progressing as a jockey, you know, just to get on a horse that had ability and potential to get into the National, you know, they're very hard to come by.
Sammy Twiston was our regular jockey, and Sammy's ridden over 200 winners for me. Sammy at the time, though, was just making a transition and was moving to join Paul Nicholls. And Paul Nicholls had Tidal Bay, who was about a third or a quarter of the price of our horse anyway. And in fairness, I think, you know, did the right thing and rode for Paul. Wretched luck for Sam, otherwise he would have been on board. But, you know, that said, Leighton had ridden 1 or 2 for me that year, and he, as I say, was top of the game, so he was a very good guy to go to.
I was sort of on Richard's sort of radar for rides sort of around that time on Saturdays and stuff, so I text Richard, and, you know, what did I have to lose? And an hour later, Richard texts me back, says, you know, he's yours. They're all coming out for a look now. So I met Pinot in Lambourne. Richard took them down to jump some entry-style fences on the Lambourne Gallops, and myself and Wayne Hutchinson. Wayne was going to ride one for Richard in the Topham on the Thursday. Pinot was smallish, 15.3, but Wayne's was even smaller. So we'd done our cantering, both felt well, jumped some normal fences, and then came back round to jump the traditional the entry fences. And there was a TV crew there with Richard, on just following Pinot's build-up and Richard's first run in the race, and we schooled them, and they were getting keener and faster and lower. We went up about 3 times, and me and Wayne thought, wow, we've survived that. Trotted back down to Richard, and he says, oh, can you do that again, please? Because the camera wasn't working here, you didn't get it. So these 2 boys now were well revved, and we were delighted to get out of that Lambourne morning in one piece. But there's a real edge to the whole day at Aintree, you know, even in the Wareham, there's just an edge, you know, everybody's excited, but, you know, there's a lot of adrenaline going through everybody. You know, everybody gets into the zone, and then when they change the the start time to 5:15, you know, it felt like a long day because we have a briefing at 12 p.m. You know, so lads, you're hanging around the changing room a long time, and you know, people are glad when it eventually comes.
We had the fright of our lives because the morning of the race, all the Grand National horses are trotted up. I've been staying up at Liverpool for the 3 days. Carolyn White, who was our senior groom and travelling head lass at that point, had brought the horse up. And just as I was arriving at the racetrack, so this would probably be about midday, something like that, my phone goes. I went, everything okay? And Carolyn says, don't panic, Richard, but come quickly. Pino's failed the trot up. And there's a concern whether he can run or not. So you could imagine how that felt. Everything is set up for our big day, blah, 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 what's going to happen? So I whipped round. It turned out that the vets were a bit undecided. Then they trotted him up, but they thought one of the vets thought he'd put in a couple of lame strides. I was very keen that he ran, as you can see. Anyway, by the time I get there, there's a committee of about 6 vets all looking at him. And I said, right, they said, well, trot him up when Dr. Newland's here. We trotted him up. I said, right, trot him away. He trotted away 3 good strides. Away. That's great, put him in his box, thank you very much. But there was nothing wrong with him. Some of these older horses, you know, sometimes they will put in a slightly lame stride, but it's a good thing we weren't stopped from running, wasn't it?
And this time they're off, and Battle Group has not gone with them.
When I saw all 40 lining up, my confidence drained very quickly in terms of how well we do.
You know, there was 2 false starts, and they are frustrating, no matter what race it is, but especially the national. You know, trying to get 40 horses stopped and back to the start, tapes put across, and you know, get everybody organised, facing the right direction. People are going to be out of position, too far back, too far forward. You know, it takes a bit of organising, but Pino was easy to manage during this whole time. He's not too strong. Some horses tear off towards the first fence and can really get into a muck sweat, but you know, he was a real professional about it.
And the Grey Rose of the Moon is also among the leaders as they take the first fence. Twirling Magnet was a faller at the first and quite badly hampered Golan Way in the process, but the rest seem to have got over it safely.
Another horse with similar colours fell at the first, and my assistant trainer at the time and the groom at the time thought Pino had gone at the first, and it was only about 10 fences later they realised he's still going.
Tidal Bay, big, powerful, strong horse. On the run to the second last, we come back onto the course proper. Yeah, he came between myself and Adam Wedge, and he was a big boy, and he jumped left and T-boned Pino de Rey.
As they cross over that fence, Pino de Rey made a very bad mistake and badly hampered 1 in a million, but both of them have survived.
It took a bit out of him, took a bit of sitting, so I was glad then once he got over the last fence, I think Tidal Bay then headed off on his own way, so after that then everything was pretty straightforward.
Wayward Prince is the last one going as they jump Valentine's.
From Valentine's there, I just had a lovely position just outside Rocky Creek and a few others. Noel Feely was in front, controlling the race, jumping really well. And then I was just able to just tag onto Rocky Creek, going back over the Melling Road, and I thought, I've got a real chance of being placed in this national. You still daren't think about winning it.
As they move on towards the neck.
Every fence on the second circuit we're going, oh, another one gone, another one gone. Then there was a moment about 4 out where he just looked to be running away with Leighton. I thought, my God, he's going well.
They move on now towards the third last.
And there was this moment, 3 out. John and I looked at each other. I can visualise the moment. Everyone else was looking at the action down the track, and we turned around and looked at each other and said, effectively saying, is this really happening? Can I believe what's going to happen?
As they race on now towards the 30th and final fence in the Crabbies Grand National, and it's Pino de Rey who comes to the final fence with Leighton Aspel. They have a lead of 3 lengths over Balthazar.
Once we got back towards the second last, you know, I just eased out to jump the middle. I wanted to aim for the middle and then the middle of the last to try to get as straight a line as possible to the elbow. I just got 2 really good jumps out of Pino at the last 2 fences, and he really quickened away from the last, you know, towards the elbow.
As they race now on towards the elbow, it's Pino de Rey who is now clearing away. He's out in front by 6 lengths as he goes around the elbow.
You're running into a wall of sound with the crowd and the noise, and you're just hoping that it's not something coming late and fast and you know, mug you.
As Pino de Rey wins the national.
Everybody was just on cloud 9 and screaming and shouting. It was frenzy.
After you'd appreciate when he won the race, my life just for a few minutes went absolutely mad. And there were microphones in front of me and we're hugging and we're doing this and being into... And suddenly I'm being called to the stage, called to the podium to collect the trainer's prize. I said, Richard, it's time to go up. And the lads were still watching around the parade ring, obviously been a big part of it. We'd all been giving each other hugs, etc. And I thought, well, I better do something to going up. And it's a bit late for the slide and I didn't fancy taking the shirt off. So I started on the podium waving around like Frank Lampard, only to look on my right shoulder, saw somebody rather patiently waiting to give me the trophy, which was Princess Anne. And I felt, Your Highness, I do apologise, but she was very good about it.
Winning the Grand National definitely changed my life. Yeah, you know, it puts you onto a bigger stage. It was how you were introduced, you know, when you're at the races, when you were going to the start, you know, number 7 ridden by this year's Grand National winning jockey.
I didn't grow up in a horsey family. I wouldn't have watched any other horse race. I probably watched one horse race a year and it would have been the Grand National. And that's in 1970 or, you know, in the early days. It's always been the race that makes jump racing special, that transcends other races.
The Grand National should be on every sports fan's bucket list, you know, to just savour and feel the experience of entry on that Saturday.